The morning air shimmered with unease as the Kalamas gathered by the roadside. They had seen many teachers pass before, each claiming truth, each leaving confusion behind. When the Buddha arrived, his presence was like a still lake amid a storm. The elder stepped forward, voice trembling yet bold. "Master, every teacher tells us his way is true, but they contradict each other. How can we know what to believe?" The Buddha's gaze was steady, neither dismissive nor commanding. "Kalama," he said softly, "it is good to question. Do not believe something merely because it is written, told, or revered. Not even if I myself should say it. Know truth for yourself, through your own seeing, your own heart." Silence followed, but within that stillness, the first seed of discernment was sown. As the Buddha's words drifted into silence, murmurs rippled through the crowd like wind stirring dry grass. Some nodded in quiet recognition. Others frowned, unwilling to let go of long-held faiths. Elder Kalama turned to the villagers, voice low but heavy. "How do we know which path is true if every teacher says the same?" Ananda stepped closer, speaking gently. "Master asks not for your faith, but for your clarity. You must look and see for yourself." The Buddha watched with calm eyes, as though gazing not at the people but into the heart of their confusion. The moment trembled between old belief and new understanding. A young farmer stepped forward, his palms pressed together, eyes weary from toil. "If we are not to believe anyone, how do we find truth?" The Buddha's gaze softened, not by rejecting belief, but by testing it. When you act with greed, hatred, or delusion, does it bring peace? When you act with compassion, does your heart rest easy? This is your measure. His voice carried through the morning air like a bell, steady, unbroken. The crowd leaned in. For the first time, belief was not demanded but offered back to them as a mirror. The young Kalama girl tugged her mother's sleeve, whispering, "Is the Buddha saying we can think for ourselves?" Her mother smiled faintly. "Perhaps that is what truth really means." Behind them. The elder watched the Buddha's face and felt something long dormant stir within, not belief, but relief. For years he had followed teachings that clashed like thunderclouds, each promising light, but now he understood. Wisdom was not given, it was grown. And the soil was one's own experience. As the sun climbed higher, the villagers slowly dispersed, their chatter subdued, each lost in private thought. Elder Kalama lingered, gazing at the dust where the Buddha's footprints faded. "Don't believe even me," the Buddha had said. The elder repeated it silently, tasting its paradox. Not denial, but freedom. Ananda approached, bowing slightly. "He does not give answers," the elder murmured. "No," Ananda replied softly. "He shows where to look." The elder's eyes lifted toward the distant hills, and for the first time in many years, the horizon seemed open. The river murmured softly beneath the noonday sun as Elder Kalama sat apart from the crowd, staring at his reflection in the water. He remembered the chants of old teachers, the promises of heaven and fear of hell, yet none had quieted the storms within him. The Buddha's words lingered, unsettling but freeing. "Don't believe even me." Could truth be found without surrendering to authority? The elder felt the weight of generations pressing on his shoulders. When he looked up, the Buddha was already watching him, not judging, but waiting. The Buddha motioned toward a small fire where villagers were cooking rice. "Tell me," he said, "would you put your hand in this flame because someone told you it gives warmth?" The villagers chuckled nervously. "No, master," said the elder. "We would test first." The Buddha smiled. "So too with teachings. Test them with your life. If they burn you with greed or anger, leave. If they warm your heart with compassion, keep them close." The words struck the crowd not as command, but revelation. Simple, sharp, unarguable. One young man stood abruptly, anger in his voice. "But if every truth is to be tested, what of our elders, our scriptures, our gods?" The Buddha turned to him, unshaken. If something is true, it does not fear examination. What is false demands obedience. What is true invites discovery. The words cut through the noon air like a blade of light. The young man lowered his gaze, the defiance draining into humility. He had expected the Buddha to demand faith. Instead, he demanded courage. Later, as the Buddha walked along the riverbank, the young Kalama girl followed at a distance. She watched him cup water in his palms and let it flow away. "Why do you let it go?" she asked. He smiled. "Because I cannot hold what is always moving. Truth is like the river. You can drink it, feel it, but never own it." The girl's eyes widened, her reflection dancing on the ripples. In that simple image, she glimpsed what the elders had missed. That truth was not a possession, but a living thing. As dusk began to approach, the Buddha sat in stillness beneath the banyan tree. The villagers gathered once more, expecting more words, but he remained silent. The wind rustled the leaves. The fire crackled to embers, and in that silence, understanding dawned. That no teaching, no voice, not even the Buddha's, could replace the knowing born within. Elder Kalama bowed deeply, tears catching light upon his cheeks. For the first time, belief was no longer a cage, but an open sky. In the village square, a merchant argued with his apprentice over a dishonest sale. The boy whispered, "But everyone cheats a little. It's how business survives." The merchant paused, remembering the Buddha's words. His voice softened. "And yet it burns inside when I do." The apprentice looked up, confused. "Then test it," the merchant said. "Let's sell honestly today and see whether our hearts are lighter." It was a small experiment, but for the first time, truth became a living act, not a sermon. That night, Elder Kalama sat by his hearth, firelight flickering across his worn face. He replayed the Buddha's words, "Don't believe even me." His mind wrestled with memories of teachers past, rituals performed without joy, and fears disguised as faith. He realized belief had been a shelter built from borrowed wood. Quietly, he whispered, "If I am to find truth, I must first unlearn." The fire crackled in response, as if acknowledging a long-delayed confession. At dawn, the young Kalama girl wandered to the pond near the grove. A single lotus bud floated, half open, kissed by mist. She crouched beside it, whispering, "If truth is like this flower, it opens by itself." The Buddha, unseen behind the trees, smiled faintly. He needed no words. The seed of understanding had already taken root in the youngest heart of the village. In her innocence, she had grasped what wisdom often forgets. Truth blossoms only in still. By midday, two villagers quarreled beneath the banyan tree. "The Buddha denies the gods," one shouted. "He denies nothing," replied the other. Their anger swelled like a storm, drawing the Buddha's quiet gaze. He said softly, "When your hearts are disturbed, do your gods bring peace or pride?" Silence struck them harder than any rebuke. They lowered their heads, realizing their faith had become a weapon instead of a refuge. The true test they saw was not in worship, but in conduct. As evening descended, the Buddha addressed those gathered one last time that day. "Each of you has a mirror, your own heart. When your actions cloud it with greed, hatred, or delusion, truth cannot be seen. Polish it through compassion, honesty, and mindfulness. Then you will know for yourselves what is true." The villagers sat in silence, each face reflecting firelight and newfound awareness. For the first time, their faith was not in the Buddha, but in their own awakening. A caravan arrived under the crimson dawn. Drums, chants, and a trail of incense. The Brahmin teacher stepped forward, his voice booming, "The Vedas hold all truth. Only through them is salvation found." The villagers murmured, old reverence reawakening like a forgotten song. Elder Kalama bowed instinctively, but something within hesitated. The Buddha stood quietly at a distance, watching without resistance. The air felt heavy, as though the village's old faith had returned to reclaim its ground. By midday, the Brahmin stood at a village square preaching verses with mesmerizing rhythm. "Faith alone delivers truth," he declared. The crowd nodded, soothed by familiarity. Yet a few, remembering the Buddha's calm eyes, grew uneasy. Elder Kalama watched, heart split between comfort and conscience. The Brahmin's words were beautiful, but they demanded surrender, not understand. The seed of doubt the Buddha had planted now struggled against the vines of tradition. That afternoon, some villagers approached the Buddha, seeking his response to the Brahmin's sermon. But he only smiled and remained silent. "Master, do you not defend your truth?" Ananda asked. "Truth defends itself," the Buddha replied softly. "Words spoken in fear of losing are not truth, but attachment." His stillness unsettled even his followers, yet in that quiet, a deeper wisdom resonated. That truth needs no argument to survive. Night fell heavy with doubt. Elder Kalama sat by the river once more, torn between voices, the thunder of the Brahmin's faith and the silence of the Buddha's knowing. He recalled the Buddha's challenge, "Test it for yourself." So he closed his eyes and listened, not to doctrines, but to his own heart. Beneath fear and pride, he found something simple and unshakable: peace. It did not come from worship, nor from denial, but from seeing clearly. He opened his eyes and whispered, "This is what the Master meant." By dawn, the Brahmin prepared to depart, frustrated that some hearts had not bent. Elder Kalama approached him with folded hands. "Your teachings are beautiful," he said gently. "But I have learned that truth is not found in words, but in what brings peace to the heart." The Brahmin's eyes narrowed, then softened with reluctant respect. "Perhaps your Buddha has made philosophers of peasants," he murmured, as his caravan disappeared beyond the fields. The villagers turned once more toward the banyan grove. Not to worship, but to understand. A farmer found his neighbor stealing water from his irrigation channel. Fury surged within him, but he paused, remembering the Buddha's teaching. He confronted the man not with shouts, but with a question. "Tell me, does this act bring peace to your heart?" The thief lowered his gaze, shame flooding his eyes. Without a sermon, truth had spoken. The farmer repaired his channel, but not his friendship, for that no longer needed fixing. Forgiveness had already done its quiet work. In the marketplace, the merchant sold grain at fair weight for the first time in years. His apprentice looked uneasy. "We will earn less," he said. The merchant smiled. "Perhaps, but tonight I will sleep without a restless heart." As the day ended, they found buyers returning, drawn by trust rather than bargain. The merchant realized the Buddha's truth, that peace, when tested, becomes prosperity in its own time. By the pond, the young Kalama girl watched her reflection ripple. "Mother," she whispered, "is the Buddha's truth inside us?" Her mother smiled. "Yes, child. It grows when we listen." The girl dropped a pebble into the water. Circles spread outward, fading gently. "Then every kind act is like this," she said. "Small, but it reaches far." The mother nodded, realizing the Buddha's words had taken deeper root in her daughter than in all the scrolls of learned men. Elder Kalama gathered the villagers beneath the banyan. "Brothers and sisters," he began, "the Buddha gave us no creed, only a mirror. We each must polish it." His voice was calm, no longer trembling with doubt. "Let us live so that our actions speak our truth." The crowd bowed, not to him, but to the wisdom now awakening in all. Even Ananda, standing nearby, felt moved. He saw that the Buddha's silence had ripened into the people's own voices. At dusk, the Buddha watched the villagers helping one another, Laughter mingled with the hum of evening life. Ananda spoke softly. "Master, they have changed." The Buddha smiled faintly. "They have seen for themselves." Fireflies began to shimmer around them as the first stars appeared. "Faith," the Buddha said, "is not believing what another tells you. It is seeing clearly with your own eyes and walking with peace, no matter where that seeing leads." His words faded into the song of crickets and the sigh of the evening wind. The sun rose softly over Kesapata as villagers gathered beneath the banyan for one final time. The Buddha stood with his alms bowl, the light catching his robe like liquid gold. Elder Kalama stepped forward, voice trembling not with fear, but gratitude. "Master, when we no longer have you to guide us, what shall we follow?" The Buddha looked at him, eyes filled with infinite stillness. "Follow the light within," he said, "and let your actions be its flame." A hush fell, the kind born from reverence, not loss. As the Buddha prepared to leave, the young Kalama girl approached shyly with a garland of wild flowers. "I have nothing to offer but this," she said. The Buddha accepted it gently. "You have given understanding," he replied. "May your heart always question. That is the beginning of wisdom." She smiled, though tears welled in her eyes. When she placed the garland at his feet, the petals stirred in the breeze, scattering like blessings. As they prepared to depart, Ananda turned to the Buddha, his voice hushed. "Master, do you not fear they will forget your words?" The Buddha smiled faintly. "If they forget the words but remember the seeing, they have understood." He began walking toward the rising sun. Behind them, the sound of villagers bowing in silence carried through the still air. The Buddha's figure grew smaller with each step, until it was no longer a presence, but a memory that breathed. Elder Kalama remained standing long after the Buddha had vanished from sight. "He gave us no doctrines," he murmured, "only a mirror to see our hearts." His eyes filled with quiet tears, not of sorrow, but of awakening. Now the mirror is ours to guard. Around him, villagers began to speak gently among themselves, but their words carried peace. The teacher was gone, yet his silence echoed through them like the lingering hum of a bell. Days passed. Life returned. Fields were tended. Markets reopened. Children laughed. But beneath the noise was a new rhythm. Awareness. The villagers no longer argued over doctrines. They listened. They tested. They lived. At dusk, Elder Kalama gathered them beneath the banyan and spoke softly. "The Buddha is not gone. He is in the seeing, in the stillness, in the peace we now carry." As lanterns flickered to life, the village glowed with quiet light, proof that the teacher's absence had become their awakening. Golden fields swayed under a calm sky. The villagers worked side by side, no longer competing, no longer envying. Each had learned to act from clarity, not desire. Elder Kalama watched them from afar, his heart full. Peace, he thought, was never something the Buddha gave us. It was something he reminded us we already had. The wind moved through the crops like a whisper of gratitude, and for the first time, the village truly felt awake. By the pond, the young Kalama girl sat gazing at the ripples where she had once met the Buddha. "Grandfather," she asked softly, "why did the Buddha tell us not to believe him?" Elder Kalama smiled, "Because he wanted us to see with our own eyes, not his." The girl tilted her head. "Then the Buddha still lives here?" He nodded, touching her chest. "Yes, in everyone who sees clearly." Her eyes shone with quiet joy, and the pond reflected two faces, one young, one wise, both luminous. That night, Elder Kalama dreamed of the Buddha walking once more through Kesaputa. But in the dream, the Buddha was not a man. He was the dawn itself, the quiet light that touched all things equally. The elder bowed deeply. The Buddha's voice, gentle and infinite, whispered, "You have not believed me. You have seen. Therefore, you are free." The elder awoke with tears of peace streaming down his face. The next evening, Elder Kalama gathered the villagers one last time. In his hand, he held a small oil lamp. "This lamp," he said, "is what the Buddha gave us, not to worship, but to tend." He placed it before them. "When your hearts are clear, the flame will not flicker." He turned the lamp toward the young girl. "You will carry it next," she nodded. And in that gesture the teaching passed, not as doctrine but as living light. As night deepened, the villagers dispersed one by one, each carrying their own small lamps through the darkness. From afar, Kesaputta shimmered like a constellation, every light a reflection of understanding. The Buddha's voice echoed faintly across time. "Do not believe even me. Test, see, and know for yourself." The camera rose slowly above the glowing village, stars above mirroring the lamps below. The voice faded into silence, vast, tender, eternal.